there and welcome to episode 74 of the Hawthorns Debate Club. My name is Jamie Clay and I am joined once a week by a couple of gentlemen more precisely, to have a few conversations and discussions about West Bromwich Albion. So let me start by saying a warm hello to my good friend Alex Collins.
Hello.
And hello to my little brother Joseph Clay.
Hello.
So it looks like the Jekyll and Hyde nature has returned somewhat, because 1 week after a miserable season opener against Blackburn, Albion looked to be making a lightweight of an old banana skin, the old enemy from South Wales in Swansea, who've given so many problems and sticking points over the last few seasons. But for 70 minutes or so, everything was comfortable, and the weight of despair that had been inflicted upon us from Ewood Park had momentarily been replaced by an unfamiliar feeling to us at the moment. A little bit of joy, a little bit of a spark of life was felt by the Albion crowd. And like I said, for 70 minutes, that was definitely the case before a surreal final 20 minutes of a game, which has left us all scratching at our heads again. Are we good? Are we still a bit crap? What is actually going on at the Albion? Is there any right to be confident about things going forward? Or should we still be panicking like we were? Because there were some positives to take, but at the same time, a few little scary notes that perhaps have got us all a little bit on edge. But we're going to talk about all of that, get through all of the talking points with a view towards where we're headed. Leeds next. But before we get to all of that, let me say a huge thank you for downloading and listening to the Hawthorns Debate Club, whether you're listening to this as a podcast on the podcast app of your choice, or you're watching us on YouTube. Like I said, we're now available on YouTube. Everything went swimmingly with the upload compared to the week before, when we promised you YouTube but failed to deliver YouTube, and now we are definitely on there. So if you're listening to this, you can go and find us over on YouTube. Just look up the Hawthorns Debate Club and we will be on there. If you're struggling, go onto the social medias, the Twitters, the Instagrams, the X's and such, and you will be able to find a link on there somewhere. But we appreciate however you're viewing, listening, consuming this media right now. We are very grateful to you and we love you. If you want to leave us likes, subscriptions, fun, any kind of meaningful encouragement, we are very, very receptive and welcoming of. So thank you for all of your support and love, and we will get now to the rest of the podcast. So like I said, guys, it was our first home game of the season at the Hawthorns. It finished 3-2, which is a bit of a surprise considering really how in control we were for large periods of the game. At one point, as we all know, listening to this, we were up 3-0 and seemingly coasting towards victory. And that's how the whole game played out. Well, the first 70 minutes of the game played out before everything suddenly came unraveling in this spectacular, near complete collapse. We seem to be the architects of our own downfall at one point, but Swansea with 2 goals back and kind of squeaky bum times, I think is the phrase, with the 9 minutes. How many minutes stoppage time was it? 9 that we had in the second half to deal with. Yeah, and we managed to get through those and escape with the 3 points. The goals were scored by surprise package of the year, Ajayi. We also had an own goal and a John Swift penalty. So we're going to talk about some of the talking points that have emerged from this game. And I want to start off by talking about something that's become abundantly clear, because every single goal involved one, but it's been described as a bit of a game of set pieces, this game. We scored 3, one from a throw-in, one from a corner, and one a penalty kick, a PK, if you abbreviate it. And then we also had conceded from a corner, 2 corners, was it, they scored from?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. The confidence with which we say yes to that. But effectively, they scored from 2 set pieces as well. Let's first start with the positive and talk about the threat that we've seen to pose from set pieces. Obviously, we haven't got a We didn't have a focal point. We'll talk about the team selection in a few moments' time. Matt Phillips starting up front by himself. And we've struggled to generate goals, but were you guys encouraged by what you've seen? Obviously, they've been working on set pieces and Darnell Furlong's long throw again coming in form. Let's start with you, Joe. What have you made about our attacking threat from set pieces so far?
I think the player who stands out is what you said. The surprise package of the year was Semi. He literally dominated the area, and he attacked the ball. It wasn't one of those ones where you know they jump up and he just gets it in. It was an attacking ball. It was played across the box. I just liked that it was like a kind of a team goal for the first goal. Like it was all up in the air, but there was some composure. They knew what to do, put it back across the box into the danger area. And Semi Ajayi, brilliant. He lost his man. I don't even know if he had a man, but he lost his man. I don't know how you can't mark Semi Ajayi in that box. He's huge, isn't he? But yeah, I just think attacking wise, he's the main attack for us. I think okay, Yakushu and Semi Ajayi are the best there. But I just loved actually going to the second goal where it was from a was that from a corner?
Yeah, in
Or
front of us in the Woodman, yeah.
but I love going back to last season. You know when Furlong would do his long throw-ins at the start of the season, undervalued, always go into that. And I think we kind of stopped that last season. He used to run up, pretend that he's going to throw it, and he'll throw it short, wouldn't he? And I hated that. When Furlong could throw it so well into the box, we saw it again this match, and I think it worked, especially with, like I said, Semi attacking it and convoluting that box really well. And their goalkeeper didn't seem too confident to come out and catch it. He was flapping it all the time, and I just think we need to use that. It's such a powerful weapon in set pieces because anytime you get a throw in the last third of their half, it's like a corner, isn't it? It's brilliant. And I was badly listening to Swansea. There was some Swansea commentators when I was watching it up in Rotherham, and they were saying mentioning back to Rory Delap. I don't know who the former Swansea player on there, and he was saying we would kick it out for a corner instead of a throw because Rory Delap's throw-ins were so flat. And I think Darnell Furlongs are getting like that now. They're getting like the flatter and very precise in among the goalkeeper, and it just you don't know where it's going to go.
Al, do you worry that although we've done really well from set pieces in this game, that going forward there's almost an over reliance on set pieces? I know there's value to being able to score from set pieces, but like I said, chances from open play were a little bit hard to come by. What do you think about it? Are we too reliant on set pieces? Should Corcoran be kind of looking to generate more from open play? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we were quite lucky to score 3 goals in one game, all from set pieces. I mean, unless you're going to play like Pulis and Stoke did when they were in the heyday, where you're literally going to shut up shop and rely on set pieces for goal because you've got, 10 big guns on the pitch, like Space Jam style. You know, um, Unless you're going to play ultra gung like that, then I think you need something to complement your set pieces, and I think it's obviously a bonus if you're going to score from set pieces, but for me, it's not the way to rely. It should just be treated as a bonus rather than um, your bread and butter.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, as encouraging as it was that we scored from our 3 set pieces, and we do look dangerous from set pieces, it's well worth saying out there. Like you say, there's the ability to mix it up. We've got John Swift's delivery, but we've also got Darnell Furlong's throwing, and with players like Shemi Ajayi, and got to be said, and I know a lot of people have made this point. It's a quality finish. It's not an easy finish. It's like coming across his whole body. He's caught it on the volley, and he's done well to kind of finish there. But I think without a recognised striker presently, or a recognised kind of spearhead for our attack, I think we're going to be very reliant on set pieces. Set pieces were definitely a big plus in this game, but they were also a huge negative in this game as well. And for the first 7 minutes, like I said, we were in cruise control. Couple of substitutions, and perhaps there's a conversation you can bring that in as well in this part. But all of a sudden, in the last 20 minutes, it wasn't just that Swansea did score from 2 set pieces. Every time the ball came into the box, it looked like it was complete panic stations. And I was fairly happy with the defence in this game. I know when you go on social media afterwards, everyone's still dunking on Cedric Kipre and Shemi Ajayi and error prone and such. But actually, for the first 70 minutes of this game, the defence in the back three looked pretty good. Pretty solid and stable. There's a couple of nervy moments, but moving out of Blackburn, there certainly seemed to have been something of an improvement. And all of a sudden, these substitutions happen and the ball's coming in, and Palmer looks shaky. Credit to Palmer, he did pull off a couple of good saves, but there seemed to be this uncertainty that suddenly was present, and like I say, a lot of panicky, last-ditch football. Obviously, they scored 2 goals, but it felt like at any point, really, there could have been an easy third. Joe, we had a phone conversation afterwards, and a lot of people have been talking about this zonal marking scheme that Corberán employs across the box. Do you think he'll ditch that now ahead of the Leeds game, or what do you think?
I don't think he will ditch it ahead of the Leeds game because I don't think Leeds will be playing to set pieces as their advantage against us. They might try it now after seeing obviously our last 20 minutes or 29 minutes against Swansea. But I don't think, personally, obviously up to 70 minutes, up to the first goal, and there's a question that if that player should be still on the pitch. I know some rules say that because they've got the penalty, that's enough of a punishment for the player. They shouldn't be sent off. For me, he takes it down. Any other place in the outside the box, he gets a yellow card.
100%.
Yeah, so he should have
Stupid
been
rule.
sent off.
Should have gone.
And then that player got into the team this week under who scored. Don't know how, but his goal was good, and I think that was a good finish. But I think personally, defending set pieces is a team goal, isn't it? It's not just down to the defenders. They're the tallest. They should be dominating. And that's their bread and butter. But the zonal marking, going back to the zonal marking, I don't think it works. That cross between zonal marking and man marking, I don't think it works for us because I don't think our team is too tall. If you go past the Yukushlu and the defence, I don't think Connor Townsend or Furlan are that tall. I think Furlan can jump high, but he's not that tall. So I just don't think it works personally. But he will not change that. He likes he's Spanish and he's got that Hispanic, type of play. And I think that's I think man marking's a very English thing. I think it's gone out of the game now. You probably find that lower down the leagues in, your League Twos, maybe non-league. I don't think you'll find it much in League One. But for me, the talking point about this, and you said about the substitutions, was Yukushlu going off. I think he kind of, even though he's not the captain, he's the captain of that defence. He organises people. And when he went off for Mowatt and Chalobah, they haven't got that in them. They haven't got that authority of defensive mode. Chalobah definitely hasn't. And Mowatt is quite small, not without his hat on. If he should wear his hat, to be fair, he'd be the biggest player on
No
that
problem
pitch.
on some corners. Yeah, he just kind of uses his Megamind to deflect.
But there you go. But yeah, I just think for me, set pieces in the first half and up to that 70 minutes, we were fine. There was no nervousness. I think we cleared it. But once they scored that first goal, they saw our vulnerability. Now, Yukushlu's gone off and they pounced on it, and fair play to them. They scored the second goal and I was nervous. I bet everyone in the Hawthorns was nervous and no one wanted to leave, did they, to 99th minute or whatever. So for me, I would go man marking, but I don't think that's in football anymore, to be honest, because I think it's a bit Neanderthal, isn't it, for a manager to go back to that.
Al, what do you think about the defensive frailties that were on show? Good games. Me and you were talking in the stadium. Defenders seem to be having a good games, but we seem to look really weak. Is it a mentality thing? Is it a confidence issue? Is it a confidence in Palmer, or does it purely come down to what kind of marking scheme we use? Where do you lie with that?
Yeah, so I totally agree. And as I said during the game, I thought Ajayi, Kipre, and Eric Poiters had a fantastic first 60 odd minutes. I thought they looked really tight, but then there was a little bit of a lack of a little bit of a lack of concentration. There was a lack of concentration, and I felt that they started to misplace a few passes, and um, they weren't controlling the ball as well as they were earlier in the game. But we'd scored our third goal in the 64th minute, and then we made substitutions between the 68th and the 69th. So Yukushlu went off for Chalobah, and Phillips went off for Mowatt. And then they scored their goal on the 74th in the 74th minute.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I think we went 3-0 up, and obviously after that, the dynamic of the game is going to change, because you think, if Swansea are going to make a move, they're going to up the tempo then, and try and push for an equaliser, and then for Corcoran to kind of change the solidity that we were experiencing up to that point. We were well in control of the game. It was a bit of a question mark. You don't know whether injuries are at play or he's trying to rest players, but there were question marks over that decision. But I thought Ajayi and Kipre, for me, they had a better than average game. I thought Ajayi played excellently. Really, really impressed by his performance the first 60 minutes. But I think I would really like them to improve their perhaps fitness, which will improve their concentration, perhaps, or really work on the focus towards the latter stages of the games.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, this whole set piece debate, I think the issue we've got as a defence is that I feel like technically they can be error-prone defenders, and because unless we score from every set piece we take, because we're not creating play, generally speaking, creating many chances from open play, it requires our defenders to almost play error-free football. There's very little margin for mistakes, because if they do make mistakes, we're not scoring enough goals to pick up points. And I agree with you guys. I think the problem with that is that as soon as a goal goes in, it creeps into their brain, the little whisper, the kind of evil little voice inside thinks it's gone, we've lost this. And I saw it in Palmer as well. I know, like I said, Palmer pulled off a couple of great saves, but there's a couple of moments when the ball came in and he was half hesitant about coming for it. And there was that one little chance where he kind of clawed his way back across goal after it wasn't dealt with and pushed it out for a corner. And the thing that screamed to me is that fair enough, it's good goalkeeping to not just get to the ball but push it away from danger. But the lack of authority and leadership in that situation, nobody who took control of the situation and dealt with it. And I thought whichever marking scheme we employ, and it's definitely a mixture of both. So people who were on Twitter afterwards and on the radio saying it was just zonal purely, you can watch it's not. It's a bit of a mixture of both, which is what practically everyone does. But for me, it was a mentality issue more than an execution issue. I appreciate they didn't do their jobs right, but it was the panic that it caused, which was more concerning for me going forward. Because I do think, as Corbyn's a man of principle, you're right, Joe, he's not going to suddenly change his mind and start doing man marking, because that has problems of its own. But it's this mentality, this nervousness, this lack of confidence that worries me when a goal goes in. We're better at home, but away, and what we saw towards that end of the game is a little bit of a concern going forward for me, because I like Ajayi and Kipre. I totally agree with both you. Had really good games. I really think Kipre had a decent game as well. And Peters had come in and done well. In fact, that back three and the back 4 or 5 with kind of Townsend Furlong, they all played particularly well, in my opinion. But the problem is, amongst them, I don't hear a voice. I don't know who the loud voice is. I didn't hear Palmer as much, I've got to be honest. And I think, like you said, when you then take a Yakushlu out of the situation, who perhaps would be a leader in, like you said, Joe, organisationally speaking, it was a bit of an in-game management issue for Corberan. Like, there's a few people have commented on that his in-game management recently has been a bit querisome. And again, it comes down to game scripts. We were the victim of that at Blackburn, having to go for it, and we were kind of almost the victim of it in this sense, in the way that Swansea had nothing left to lose. Any other thoughts on that before we move on?
I'd just like to mention that Kipre made a great challenge. You know, when we were 3-2, we were winning 3-2. It was right at the end, and he made this last-ditch challenge when they were going down the right. But that wasn't the main thing. I like how Kipre wears white boots. It reminds me when I was younger, when all the cool kids wore white boots, and you had to be good to wear white boots. But he goes with the socks. It just looks like he's wearing his socks out
He's
there.
just running around barefoot. He's like Joga Bonito, like on the beaches of Rio, like barefoot. Joe actually didn't have white boots. Joe had black boots with neon, like the Saved by the Bell graphics with like
Paul
from
Gascoigne's.
the 90s, the Paul Gascoigne signature boots. And he actually spent more time looking at his boots than playing football, which was always the narrative of our football careers as the Clay brothers. Not feared for our, but very, very, very popular for our boot choice, particularly because I wore Patrick football boots. But talking of the game and the in-game management, there was a little bit of a conversation about the pre-game management. This is the third game in a row now that Corberan's been tinkering. We saw 4 at the back against Blackburn, which obviously didn't work particularly well. We then saw 3 at the back against Stoke, but a huge team overhaul. And now this game, we've seen 3 at the back and kind of the regular starters come back in. And I guess the interesting thing was the inclusion of Peters in the back 3. And then also what we've already mentioned is the spearhead being Matt Phillips. Obviously, BTA has picked up a knock that came out before the game. What do you think of this tinkering? Does it worry you that Corberan either doesn't know his best formation or his best team lineup?
It will worry me next game if he doesn't keep this formation, because I think this formation works. I think it secures us a little bit at the back. I know we conceded from set pieces, but from normal play, which we happened against Blackburn, we got ripped to shreds. Our defence did. It shores us up the back. We've got a bit of with Peters in there, or if you had Carl Bartley in there, you'll have a bit of authority at the back, a bit of authority. We'll go with that. I can't think of the other word.
That will work.
Yeah. And I think Connor Townsend played brilliant at left mid. To be honest, I think it's the best I've seen him play for a long time. And I don't think Furlong played bad. I think they all played bad. Furlong went back into the 4, didn't he? He traced back into the 4 if we need to go back to a 4. Peters came across and was left defensive. I think this is the one. The only problem I think is he loves Matty Phillips, doesn't he? So when BTA is back, where does he leave Matty Phillips up front? Does he put BTA back? Where does he put Matt Phillips? Does he take John Swift? Does he Wallace? He ain't taking Furlong or Connor Townsend off. I can't see him doing any of that unless he does Matty Phillips for Furlong. But yeah, if he changes it back to the 4-4-2, which we were playing against Blackburn, it was more of a 4-4-2. It isn't a 4-4-2, but it started off and it amalgamates. There's no real standard formation now. They'd learn to play about 3 or 4 each match, don't they? So I would hope that he starts with this against Leeds, because Leeds are a threat going forward, and we'll discuss that in our preview. But I think this shores us up from open play, and I think Leeds will be attacking us through open play more than set pieces. So I think this is the one. I think for me, I think I saw potential in this, and if we get used to this, I think we can push on from there.
Joe has selected this as his football manager tactic now. Al, what do you make of it? Anything about the defence, or perhaps how do you think Matty Phillips spearheaded the attack?
Yeah, I mean, defence-wise, I think with the players at our disposal, you've got to play a back three, really. And I think Saturday showed that. I think with the errors that they've got in them, you've got that extra player to cover if you need them. So I would definitely stick with three at the back. But for me, it's the personnel in attacking, and midfield, which is interesting. I think we've got an embarrassment of riches at the moment, which is something I didn't think I'd be saying. And I hope Loy isn't listening and thinks he can, just carry on sitting in his jacuzzi and not pull his finger out or open his purse. Because yeah, I think Phillips had a good game up front. I didn't mind him. Like when I first saw the team sheet, I did think, how are we going to win this with no striker? But then I thought about it, and during the game I was watching Phillips, and he's a good player. He can play there. He's done it before, I think, in previous playing for previous teams. But I think when Diangana comes back, you've got Sarmiento to come into the mix. You've got Madja, and then you've got the midfield like your Kuslu, Lumby. Just stick with playing two kind of holding midfielders, and then a player in the hole like Swift or Sarmiento or Mowatt. And then, strikers, you've got Madja, Asante, you've got Wallace, Diangana, TGH. We've got some really good players there now. So I was really encouraged. So, going into Leeds, I think it'll be interesting to see who he picks.
It's interesting because obviously his hand was forced somewhat by the injury to BTA. And I personally, not that Matt Phillips had a bad game. I just think he wasn't as effective as we've seen him under Corcoran. And because he's not playing in his natural position, I guess it's funny because you look at Matt Phillips and for all of his kind of qualities, I can't work out why he's not a better kind of number 9, but he definitely functions better on the left-hand side. He didn't really pose a particular goal threat on Saturday, whereas I think if he'd been on the left at some point, Matty Phillips is going to generate either a chance for someone else or a chance for himself, but that didn't happen. I like the back three. I think what we showed with the back three is that we're actually very competent at adjusting in game, in the sense that when Connor Townsend went forward, Eric Peters slid across, and then you've still got the two centre back pairing in Kipre and Ajayi, and Darnell Furlong would come back, and it would almost create a back four. So you always had this kind of adjustments being made by the defence. So they seem to understand how to play it. And like I said, I think it's unlikely that we'll see Bartley, though. I think also because I think obviously left-sided centre back and Peters for your passing angles and all your data and such really kind of warrants him starting ahead of Bartley. But I think the interesting thing I found in this game is, because I've been looking at some of the data, is just how impressive Darnell Furlong's stats were in this game. He was one of our highest progressive passers. Well, he was our highest progressive passer in this game, and he was also one of the highest ball carriers in this game. And so it obviously suits our wing backs at this point as well, when they can push up and their attacking attributes are more displayed than the defensive. And because I do think they're frail defensively, those two, and it often leaves us exposed. But I think if we can compensate for that and then utilise their strengths going forward, this is definitely something that I think we have to stick with. And as we shore up the other positions, I really think that this is he stumbled across it a little bit here. Let's move on to another topic then that kind of comes out of this, and perhaps we've already mentioned some names, but we've seen 3 games this season so far, and we've spoken about surprise packages in our pre-season. But is there anyone over the course of these 3 games, or perhaps just the 2 games in the league, that you now view differently? Perhaps at the end of the Blackburn game you weren't sure, but the Swansea game you've seen something different. Who's your friend that was your enemy, or not as friendly?
Friend who was my enemy. I would say Mowatt hasn't still won me around, by the way. Connor Townsend, I think I mentioned it before. I think Connor Townsend, this match, really dominated his position, put some quality balls in. His corners were great, which I don't always say. Hopefully, that's his last free kick. To be honest, I think there's enough quality on that pitch for not having Connor Townsend taking our free kicks, well, attacking free kicks. But I just think he did what we've all been wanting him to do on his attacking side. And like you just mentioned there, he doesn't have to do all his defensive side. So we can appreciate what he does when he goes forward. Because I think when he's in that left wing back, he gets maybe caught in the middle. Do I be defensive or do I be attacking? And that's why you see him passing back every so often and starting to play again. I know that's the way Corbrand likes to do it. But we actually saw his attacking, and I think he is a threat. I think he's got a good footballing head, and his decision making is quite good when he goes forward, and his crossing is quality. So I really hope that Corbrand, like you said, keeps this thingy and he changes. I don't hate him, but I just think this position as this midfielder, left midfielder, I don't know what it is. It's like this weird one, isn't it?
Hybrid, yeah.
Yeah. So he can go back, but he's more attacking. I hope we see the best of him because I still think the last couple of seasons we haven't seen the best of Connor Townsend. I know people say with the stats he's really good, but I just think he's better at attacking and defending.
Alex, who's your frenemy now?
I think this one will please you, Jamie. I think Ajayi. I think Ajayi and Kipre for at least the first 60-odd minutes of the game against Swansea really, really impressed me. Made me think that they could actually work in the back three and like to the standard of being almost, like the best like defence in the championship. I think they have got the ability to do that, and I'm pleased for Ajayi because I think I said last week that Ajayi, he's got so much potential, and it's about time that he kind of realised it. And, I think there were signs of that on Saturday, and hopefully with a bit of consistent game time and alongside a bit of a safety net of two other defenders, I think we've got a real player on our hands there.
Now, let me just read some stats about Semi Ajayi. As I said, surprise package of the year, delivering so far, delivering that package. 1 goal, 2 shots on target, nearly scored an almost carbon copy of the first goal. He had 1 dribble, 2 interceptions, 2 clearances, 4 tackles won, 4 aerial duels won, 5 ground duels won, 55 touches, 42 passes, and 81% passing accuracy. Really did show. And there was one particular incident that made me so happy because it shows what Ajayi is all about to me. We had a friend, Josh, who'd come to watch the game with us, Liverpool fan, so not exposed to the qualities of Championship football, the rare, refined air of the Hawthorns very often. But he was watching, and there was a ball pinged over the top that in many situations you're anticipating the attacker runs onto. Semi Ajayi started alongside the attacker, and by the time he reached the ball was about 8 meters ahead of the attacker and had not just time to get to the ball, but time to turn and deal with it. The speed of that man, I honestly, I say this, I've said it before on the podcast, I would argue there is no attacker faster than him in the Championship over a distance. He can make up the ground, so I was chuffed with Semi Ajayi, but that's not my player. See how dramatic that pause was? My player was John Swift. John Swift had a very, very mild performance against Blackburn. It was very cool. Almost, you could say, it almost looked like either a pre-season game or the end of the season when results don't matter. He almost seemed to be going through the motions a little bit. Now, I appreciate he was brought in a particularly frantic part of the game. But although John Swift will show up in the stats this week for having scored the penalty, he was actually involved in all 3 goals. It's his cross that leads to Darnell Furlong's shot that causes the own goal. And if you watch the Semi Ajayi goal, it's actually John Swift that wins that second ball the first time through, and it is not like John Swift. I think Andy Johnson makes a mistake of thinking it's Shikushlu, and it's not. It's John Swift. He jumps higher, almost attacks the bloke he's jumping alongside, wins the header. He goes across the box. He comes back across the box. I think Connor Townsend wins a header at the back post, and it comes back, and it's what's the name? Shemi Ajayi who scores. Sorry, I just blanked then completely. It's also, interestingly, Cedric Kipre does an interesting kind of progressive pass, which John Swift picks up, moves forward, and plays in Connor Townsend, who wins the penalty. The thing with John Swift is he's never going to be the kind of try-hard footballer in terms of he's running around like a headless chicken trying to get like his kilometers up in a game. But the work he does in causing problems to opposition in terms of creating chances from set pieces, from open play, the penalty is a great penalty. You can't understand that. It's proper, like a keeper independent penalty. He just puts it in the corner. And so for me, John Swift going forward, it's difficult, but he almost becomes a must start because when he's on the pitch, we score more goals, whether that's through set pieces, like I said, or through chances he generates for other people. We're going to have to press pause there because our Zoom call, because we are pros, is coming to an end. And cheap, obviously, yes, we don't pay for Zoom, as has already been pointed out. If Zoom want to sponsor the podcast, we are open to that. Just drop us a message and such. But we'll be back in a few moments' time. So let's carry on our conversation after our mini break there. I want to talk about next. It's something that obviously will kind of move us towards a conversation about what happens in games going forward. But we saw cameo appearances from Josh Maja and Sarmiento. They came on during that collapse, really. I'm not saying they really played any part in it at all. In fact, the glimmers we saw seemed to be quite encouraging. Do you think that as things stand, it's difficult for them to kind of break into the starting lineup? Apparently BTA is only a knock and should be back for Leeds. Do you think they've done anything to justify their inclusion, or would you just be willing to roll the dice regardless, Joe?
I don't think they've had a chance to push into the first 11 at the moment because I think at the moment we need to be cautious than attacking. If we are winning, let's say 5-0, no, let's not say 3-0 because we have to be well ahead to convincingly win. I think they'll come on, but they'll have their time. There'll be games where we will go attacking, but at the moment, because we lost the first league game and then the League Cup game, I think Corbran's feeling not so much the pressure, but the team are feeling the pressure of we need to get some wins under our belt, start pushing on.
Mm-hmm.
But I just would like to say something about Sarmiento. We haven't had a player who has the short socks.
Oh, is
It's
that
like,
right?
yeah, it's like the white boots, what I was saying earlier. Like back in the day, the good players like David Beckham had his like those predators, those like pearly white predators.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jack Grealish was the first player I really ever saw who had the short socks, and there seems to be loads of players doing it now. But he has got them, and you have to be good. You
You
can't be
do.
crap.
Absolutely. Because you're basically saying, look at me, I'm doing it differently. And if you're drawing the eye, you've got to have something different about you. I didn't really pick up on that, but I think that's a worthy inclusion in our analysis there, that he does have small shin pads and low socks.
Yeah.
Interesting, Joe.
And
Nice.
he does that cut in, doesn't he? It's very, I wouldn't say it's Jack Grealish like, but it's very that flair, direct type of player, like Jack Grealish and those, where they're direct and they just they drop their shoulder and they pass the player and they keep doing it and they cause a foul, and that's what they do. And it really helps us. It really helped us in that latter stage of that game because him was getting brought down every second time he had the ball. It was just brilliant. And I think going on to Maja, I don't know if Alex wants to say anything about Maja, but I would say he did the same. He got so many fouls. He played his part in that game for the last 10 minutes or whatever, how many minutes they were on. They both played their part. They caused fouls, and if you need that, that's what they're good at. Those attacking players are good at it, and use that to our advantage.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think Corcoran will have difficulty selecting a first 11. As I mentioned earlier, I thought they both looked fantastic, and I think the Leeds game is the first game where you could probably argue that Sarmiento's now match fit. He's been coming on a few games now for the last half an hour or so, whereas I think this time I think it'd be difficult to use that card and say he's still trying to get match fitness. I think with Madger, you've probably got another couple of games where you can say that. Although I think for me, Madger, I think he'd be quite good as a number 9, that lone striker. I thought he ran a lot, chased the ball, held up the ball really well. Gave away. He didn't give away any fouls, but he got fouled a few times, which slowed the play down for us. Sarmiento, that one, I remember it's probably around the 75th minute, 80th minute, something like that. But he tricked his way into the box, and it looked like Pereira, Harvey Barnes-esque. You could even go as far back as like Kumas or these silky players that they come along once a blue moon. Really like set the Hawthorns alight.
Alex getting a bit dreamy-eyed then when you were reeling off those list of names, bro. It is absolutely right. I think, like you said, there's a magical quality about what players like that can do. They're the reason you watch football, in my opinion. When you, as much as we all love a good, rugged kind of no-nonsense centre-back to clear up the mess and stuff like that, when you put on a YouTube compilation, you want flair and things that bring excitement to the game. And there was that run that you've just mentioned there, Alex, where he kind of weaved and turned the defender back on himself a couple of times and really generated more space than he had any right to. And there was the other one where he received it, I don't know, like halfway in our own half. And it's the one that Albion have put the clip on Instagram today and on the social medias where he kind of runs with the ball and he does a full 360, like no scope, and this before the player brings him down. But he genuinely turns 360 degrees in such a rapid time, like his turning circle, his unbelievable agility and the ability to move and turn the ball around like that. I think the problem that we have going forward is did Phillips, are we going to rely on Phillips to keep up his hot form under Corcoran, or will it be a case of Sarmiento jumps the queue? I think Madger, for me as well, he jumps the queue ahead of Phillips, at least in spearheading the attack. I think if Asante isn't good to go against Leeds, Madger starts for me. In fact, out of the two of them, I'd probably say Madger is more likely to start at this point. But it's definitely food for thought for Corcoran. And obviously that kind of nicely leads us out of the Swansea game into kind of the next game, which is Leeds away. We're not too sure about, obviously, the injury to BTA. Right, something went wrong with the recording there. So this seamlessly is us transitioning into talking about the Leeds. Can't remember necessarily what I was saying, but we're going to talk about the Leeds game next. Obviously, they've come down from the Premiership. They've sold quite a lot of players. And when you look at their squad, there's a lot of faces that perhaps we haven't seen, but there still are some of the old faithful few that we saw from that battle under Slaven Bilic, but a lot of them are out. Dallas and Bamford are injured, and kind of Luke Ayling's the one that always springs out to me as being kind of iconic leads of that era. But there's a lot of young players in the team, a lot of young players who've played at Premiership level, a lot of pace in the side, haven't necessarily come down and pulled up trees. They've kind of struggled a little bit. I think people were expecting the teams coming down from the Premiership to just go off this season and really storm the league. It's interesting that that's not been the case at all. In fact, even Southampton and and Leicester, the other two teams, have really struggled to. They've got results, but they haven't come as easily as they were to Burnley last season, for example. I am nervous about this game. There's one particular reason I'm nervous about this game that isn't particularly good analysis, is that it's away. I think we still have a huge problem away from home that has carried over like a hangover from last season, where at the Hawthorns we looked like a top side in the division, whereas away from home we look nervous, we look panicky, we're cagey in terms of build up. We generate very few chances, and as soon as the opposition score, we look like we're already beaten. I think we have a major kind of yips away from home. I really think we've got kind of a proper, I don't know what you call, like a mental fog playing away. We look like a completely different team, but like nothing like when we got the blue and white stripes on, I'm confident, but any other iteration of kit that we have, and I'm seriously worried. And I am worried about this Leeds game, and not purely just because we've they're obviously got some quality in the side, but because I worry about our mentality and our kind of mental fragility as well. What do you guys make of the game against Leeds?
I'm going to this one. I think I mentioned it last week, but yeah, I'm nervous about this. They have, like you mentioned, they've got key injuries. I've just done some extensive research while we've been on the podcast. They've got Dallas out, they've got Firpo out, they've got Bamford out, they've got Cooper out, they've got Somerville out, which I think is a great one for us because that Somerville looked really good against Cardiff. He's really, attacking, direct, skillful. They've still got players refusing to start. Gnotto, is it?
Yeah, he
And
looks
then
like he might be on the way out, hopefully.
Yeah, and then Adam Tyler's on his way out after he's had his crazy going to Chelsea, going to now Bournemouth. I think that's the way it goes. But for me, I'm not so nervous about us being away. I think if we keep, like I mentioned, keep this formation, I think we can keep Leeds at bay. I think they'll try and play at us, play football at us, because I think Daniel Farker likes to play a bit of football.
It's a good job as a football manager, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is really good. But for me, the trickiest situation of this is if BTA is fit, does he put BTA in? Where does he put Matt Phillips? Who does he where what does he tinker with this time? What does he hopefully nothing in the back and Connor Townsend and Furlong play, and obviously you can have OK, Kushler and Malumbi. So it's just gonna be the front three. So what does he do? And I think he'll stick with what he has and bring BTA on. I think he will stick. But then we're not going to have really any attacking prowess. I think we're going to go for the set piece goals.
So what are you saying? You think he'll drop Matt Phillips then in that situation, or John Swift? They're the two that are going
No,
to
I think
make
I
that.
think I think he'll stick with what he started with against
Matt
Swansea.
Phillips at number 9.
Yep, I
Interesting.
think he'll do that because I think there's an easy way out of that. Is that BTA is coming back from an injury. Let's bring him back in. We've got a long season ahead of us, and BTA can come on. I don't think you'll see Madja this match unless he brings BTA onto the wing. But for me, I think we defend. I think we can do the set piece type of thing again. I think Ajayi is going to be essential for this in this game. Kipre, Peters. I think those players are going to be essential for us to get these points, defending and attacking. So for me on this one, I'm going to say we're going to win 2-1, and it's going to be set piece goals again. And I think Ajayi and maybe Furlong, one of those players. But yeah, I think he sticks with what he had. It's a winning formula. Bring BTA on, and then it might change the next game down because these are tough games. And I think he's going to go. Leeds is his hometown. It's where his son was, born and everything. I think he'll go to conserve 0-0, and we'll win it on the break, on the set pieces.
Protect his reputation in town. Yeah, they are actually currently sat 19th. They've drawn to Cardiff and lost to Blues. think people think Blues might be quite decent this season, but it's certainly not the start they anticipated. Al, are you worried about that kind of the bounce back, like they want to prove a point against us? They will be kind of the victims of their anger, or do you think we can go there and enforce our game plan, or will we look to kind of sit back and contain them? What do you think?
I'm not that worried, to be honest. I always thought that Leeds would struggle this season because
Total
I don't, I
confidence.
don't, I don't think they know what's going to hit them with all these teams. I don't think they've got enough goals in them, to be frank. So I think they're in for a really tough slog this year. I mean, now I've said that, I've obviously just jinxed us, but I think that I think we'll win 2-0. I think after the Swansea game, we were encouraging for 60 60 minutes plus 5 minutes, which is a really interesting way of saying 65 minutes. But I think Corberan has got the nous to sort of learn from what went wrong. And I think with the attacking players that we've got coming back, we've got goals in us. We've got a solid defence, so I think we'll win 2-0.
Yeah, I think that there's a few things that are. I think they're struggling to score goals. That's kind of well documented. Like you say, their main source of goals, perhaps Somerville, perhaps it will be Bamford if he can find any level of fitness. We are scoring plenty of goals ourselves. Like you say, the set piece is always going to be a threat. It's just going to be a case of, can we limit the mistakes? Can we kind of solidify the set piece defending? And I really do think the away thing. I mean, I'm just looking at a few facts here. We haven't won an away game in 9 matches. I think the last one was probably Blackpool away last season. Is that right? It could all be back then. And we also haven't kept a clean sheet in 12 matches. And perhaps even more worrying than that is that Leeds haven't lost to us. We haven't beaten Leeds in our last 5 games against them. Now, obviously, that's all the past, and we are men that live in the future. The debate club is very much nestled in the present. We look into the auras and time and what lies ahead, and so we can't be suckers to history, but also at the same time, those kind of stats, insights, whatever you want to call it, they do leave me very, very worried about this game. I think where they currently sat in the table is a bit of a false position. I do think they'll creep back up once the transfer window's closed and they kind of settled on who their team is over the rest of the season. Very much like us as well, that they'll naturally begin to pick up points. So looking at them and seeing that they're in 19th at the moment probably doesn't mean too much. I would think a point away at Ellen Road come the end of the season will be considered a very, very good point. So I'm going to say that we draw 1-1, and I think Captain Jed Wallace will score against them. I really hope, for Corberan's sake, I don't know, how do you play this? How do we look at this? Corberan, does he want to impress Leeds by beating them, or do we want it? Is there something to say that if the executives there see him, the Leeds fans see him, and we're really crap and struggle, that it'll put them off for good? Or do we just have to try and support Albion and hope they win?
Another dimension, Jamie, is that he could be too busy saying hello to all his old friends that he doesn't focus enough on the game.
The 4th dimension of social interaction.
And I see that one.
Yeah, potentially. I think the thing that I would hope that changes between this game, and there's a few podcasts have made the point of talking about this as well, is that people actually get behind the team and this booing of players conversation. I don't know where you guys stand on that, but I was talking to Alex. Alex arrived at the game with 5 minutes to go, Al?
Yep, it was completely unprecedented. I'm usually there at least an hour before.
Before kickoff or the end of the game?
This is before kickoff. Alex is if we've got like a Saturday kickoff, then Alex is there about Thursday tea time. So he's generally speaking, I've never walked in. I was genuinely concerned when I walked into the ground and Alex wasn't there. I thought something terrible had happened, some tragedy had struck him. And so we got there anyway. So we only had a few seconds to chat before the game even kicked off. But it was at the point when, the announcer goes for all the team names. And I was genuinely nervous that people were going to boo Cedric Kipre because it's just embarrassing. Like if you're an away fan, you come and you hear, or an away player, even you hear that the fans before the game's even kicked off are going to boo. Fortunately, they didn't with Kipre. But then Chalobah, I'm still giving that over unnecessary. Is it just Chalobah?
Yeah, Chalobah.
Chalobah, he comes on and there's the rumblings of boos. And it's just sad, man. I get like you've paid your money, you can moan and grumble all you want, but booing our own players is just, the thing for me is it's just so counterproductive. It's not going to make them better. Do you guys think booing, you pro boos or
I think
boos?
these are the same people that say, it's my birthday and I'll cry if I want to.
Yeah. I think you boo them all. That's it.
I remember Alex once had that as his kind of approach to booing, was to begin to boo them as they booed. I don't know how that would kind of land on the pitch, just a cacophony of boos.
For me, like that's how negativity breeds negativity, doesn't it? I think if you're gonna be negative, if you're that player, you're going to be upset, and if you're a fan who thinks it's wrong, you're going to be upset. So then that creates negativity, and then that just fuels more negativity because the player doesn't focus, and the fans get there's inside fighting. So yeah, it's just bad practice. If there was a manual of how to support your club, rule 101 would be no booing.
Don't boo your own players.
You know what it reminds me of? You know when Brian Jensen, the Beast, used to play for us, and everyone goes bees, but it sounded like everyone was booing him.
Chalobah,
yeah,
yeah, it did.
Maybe we're calling him the Beast. Chalobah.
Yeah, maybe we just try and hijack the boos. That's a good little kind of shine a light campaign. We hijack the boos to start a new nickname for Chalobah, Beast.
Beast, yeah. Don't think he's going to catch on, is it?
So you probably won't know, but neither did the shine a light on Saturday, so I won't worry too much about that. Yeah, I don't like booing. I think it's stupid. I think it's a waste of time. But what do I know, really? Last thing to say, games on a Friday night. We're on TV, I think, so inevitably we will be trash. Cool. Happy boyos? You look it.
Yeah.
I think we should all keep an eye out for Joe on the Sky on Friday.
I just hope I can get my last train back because of the extra time.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. You do have to take that into consideration. Joe, for the fans of the Hawthorns Debate Club watching on YouTube, how will they be able to see you in the crowd? Do you have any pyrotechnics? Will you be rushing the pitch at any point? How can you make us known?
I'm going to be wearing my Megamind hat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it'll just be a massive hat.
So look out for Joe. He will be a beacon of hope sat in Ellen Road on Friday evening, but we'll land it there. It's been a great conversation as always, as it is at the Debate Club. Thank you for listening to us this week. Thank you for downloading or watching the YouTube. Subscribe, like, do all the things that YouTube people say, because we're now YouTubers, lads, which is exciting, the real world that we live in. Do all those things that the other YouTubers tell you to do to our YouTube, and we'll be very, very happy. Please tell people about the podcast. Word of mouth is the only real thing we do. We don't do anything spectacular about that, and so we're really grateful when you do that.
We don't mind word on Twitter, by the way, Jamie.
We don't mind that. Or if you, like I say, with Pitch Invasion, with some sort of pro Hawthorns Debate Club message, we're also in full support of that. Like block roads, signs, placards, do it all. We're totally supportive of that. But all that remains for me to say today is a huge thank you to you, Alexander Newton Collins.
Cheers.
Thank you to you, Joseph Gerald Clay.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Sweet dreams.